Well, it is at 9:30. We get into our next discussion now. So lobby group Sakeliga has given President Cyril Ramaphosa and some ministers until the 15th of August this week to intervene in the troubled Ditsobotla municipality in the northwest. The group approached the courts in an effort to force national government to step in following persistent service delivery woes in that municipality. Well, to give us more details, we are joined by Sakeliga CEO Piet, who joins us for the discussion. Mr. Roux, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, you would know this as the media. We've been covering Ditsobotla for such a long time, a municipality that has faced so many challenges. Sakeliga stepping in and saying, well, we're going to hold ministers and the president to account. Perhaps you want to give us the backdrop of how it is that Sakeliga became part of this and why you decided to take the various steps of going all the way to write to the president and the various other ministers.
Thank you, Naledi. I think your channel and others, the SABC, some of the papers, online outlets have done a great job at highlighting what's going on in Ditsobotla. It's really the leader in the country, unfortunately, in state failure or municipal collapse. We've been involved in the town for several years now, mostly working with some of the business groups in the town, but also some of the civil society organizations, some of the business people individually. And they invited us to help them force the government to intervene as it is constitutionally obligated. And this has been a multi-year process where we first tried to enforce intervention by the provincial government. That has failed. We can get more into how that has failed and how they've now publicly admitted that it's failed. And now, most recently, we are seeking, unless the president and the cabinet intervenes as they are obligated to, we will be seeking cost orders against the president and the relevant ministers because they are constitutionally obligated to personally take charge under Section 1397 of the Constitution, and they are repeatedly failing at that obligation. There are many municipalities approaching the state of collapse that Ditsobotla is in, and it's really crucial that the national executive and the president personally take charge and turn these municipalities around. If we do not force them to, we face a cascading collapse across the countryside. It's really important that they intervene.
Yeah, you know, you used the words a cascading collapse, and I'm actually keen to maybe take a few steps back and say, explain to the everyday South African who's watching this conversation and says, goodness, remind us just how bad the situation is in Ditsobotla. Not just the leadership issue, but certainly how it impacts service delivery. I know that we've seen the MSC for Cooperative Governance, for instance, in the Northwest, you know, having a plea on television asking that there should be the invoking of Section 139 because the province has exhausted all its options in dealing with challenges at Ditsobotla.
Yes, just last week, the MEC for COCTA in Northwest was on record, televised address, making a public plea saying the national government has to bring everybody, send everything they have to intervene in terms of Section 1397. So intergovernmental cooperation has broken down to the level that the provincial executive has to make a public plea to get the national executive to intervene. We're looking at water failures, we're looking at electricity failures, we're looking at multiple mayors disputing and even violently fighting. We've seen the personal security guards of some of the people who were sent to intervene by the province being assaulted. We've seen the administrative, like the paperwork of the municipality, flowing with the wind, blowing with the wind around town. Effectively, that municipal administration has collapsed. Now, let me tell you, in the words of President Ramaphosa himself, when he visited this before the last elections, he called the town a horror story. He said it was captured by criminal elements. And he said that there will definitely be an improvement just a few weeks after his address. Nothing has happened. So this is why we are now taking this to the level of personal cost orders. We have approached the court saying that there needs to be an urgent intervention. We have spelled out what that intervention should look like. Then the province goes on record saying that they need the intervention, but on paper in court they are under oath objecting to what we are proposing, but in public they're asking the national intervention. Similarly, the president, the National Treasury and others are not substantively opposing our application, yet they fail to invoke Section 1397. So on all accounts, there is not a good faith opposition. There is a breach of duty of the most extreme kind by the province and by the national executive, headed by the president with his ministers. And it is appropriate to ask the court for its extreme sanction to them personally for their breach of duty, their waste of money, their willful negligence. And the court has already ordered costs earlier this year against the province. And so what we're asking is not unprecedented. There is a real risk of them getting personal cost orders if they persist beyond this week with delaying their intervention.
And just for the sake of our viewers, so Section 1397 of the South African Constitution allows for national government to intervene in a municipality when the provincial government fails to act under Section 1395 to address where there is a financial crisis, just to bring our viewers up to speed. Yes. So I want to get into the details because there's letters that have been written out to the various ministers. If we can get into perhaps some of the pointers that you share with each of them. One of them, of course, being Enoch Godongwana, Treasury. Talk to me about what you want to see from him urgently and the timeframes that you've given to him as we go through the other ministers that you've spoken or written to.
Yes, the Minister Godongwana of Treasury is from the National Executive side, the most important of the parties. I think they may actually be the only party officially opposing the application, but they have offered no substantive grounds for opposing the application. They're only offering some procedural and some minor side issues that they don't want everything that we're asking for granted. For example, because national government and the province have failed so often, we're actually also asking the court to make them report to the court and to us under oath every month on their progress. But on the substance, Mr. Godongwana is not opposing this, and yet he's failing to intervene. Others, like Minister Velenkosini Hlabisa, Minister of Kokta, initially opposed the application and then withdrew his opposition, letting the court know earlier this year that he will abide by the court's decision. So we have a mix of abiding and non-substantive opposition within cabinet. So effectively a recognition that they are obligated to intervene. They do not oppose our substantial arguments, but they fail to intervene. So that's why we've put them on notice for the end of this week, which we will then proceed to seek cost orders against them.
You've also notified the Northwest Premier Lazarus Mokhosi and his provincial executive that you'll seek personal costs against them.
Yes, it's also egregious and unconscionable what they are doing. Last week, the MEC for Kokta goes on national television, a televised address pleading for national government intervention, saying that there's nothing the province can do, saying that national government shouldn't even just send one administrator, they should send everything, all the resources. He basically send everything you have. We're dealing with a complete collapse. And at the same time, he and his other respondents, the Premier, the Provincial Executive, the MEC for Kokta, the MEC for Water and Sanitation, they're under oath still opposing the application. Isn't this extreme? They're opposing on paper in the court just last week before the judge in a meeting to discuss the case and the slow progress. They still oppose it under oath. And the next day or the day before, they go on a televised address saying that national province should intervene. Are these people serious? They lack complete respect and they completely lack the appreciation for what is going on in that town, the poor residents, the poor businesses. They're completely disrespecting the court process. They're completely in willful breach of their duties. It deserves a heavy sanction by the court.
It's not lost on me, Mr. Roux, that in 2026 you've got local government elections that are going to be taking place. And so you're also expecting that in the months to come, much campaigning will be taking place even in Ditsobotla. The biggest concerns that you have around that, the kind of promises that will be made prior to those local government elections to residents that are growing more and more desperate.
Yeah, it's a powder keg. Ditsobotla is not unique in this sense. Many of your listeners and your viewers this evening will recognize the symptoms we're describing in their own municipalities. In the words of the MEC in his televised address last week, he was saying that as a province, they do have the power to disband the municipal council, but they're not going to do so because they have lost hope that disbanding the municipal council, having more local elections, will render a different outcome. These are not my words. These are the MEC Cocktaf Northwest words, saying that another election will not render a different result. So there is a deep underlying problem, which is that somehow the governance structures from national government, the oversight processes, the democratic processes somehow keep resulting in complete collapse. So there really needs to be a deep rethink about the dispensation of local government, how that works. We need to solve this. Earlier in the program, I used the words a cascading failure across the countryside. We really risk a destabilization of the countryside. You will see people and businesses exit to the regional towns where those towns are able to bear the pressure. You will see that exodus moving to the metros. We're already seeing what's happening in Johannesburg, in Bloemfontein. If we don't find a way to stabilize the countryside, and for that, then we face a serious collapse destabilization across the country. And to stabilize the countryside, this is back to our court case. We need national government to take up its obligations. And if it fails to do so, then Sakeliga will launch another round of litigation, because then we will need to create jurisprudence and recognition for the communities, the civil society organizations and the business organizations of these towns to undertake interventions with their own resources, but it will then need the protection of the court, because it seems like the local municipality, the province and national government are all to work with the people, and somehow they get stuck in infighting and in lethargy instead of complying with their constitutional duties.
Yeah. Before I let you go, just I think one last issue, and that is the letters that you've sent now to the various cabinet ministers. Enoch Godongwana, I know that you've also written to Phemi Majodina as well. Have you heard any response from them as of yet?
Yes, we have received a acknowledgement of receipt last week. I must say that it was apparently with thanks. That is the most responsive we've seen the presidency, but we'd appreciate, we'd put more value not on their thanks, but on their actions. And so far, the best we got was a acknowledgement of receipt. But you know what? That's okay. If the dialogue needs to continue through the courts, then that is what we will do. And saying thanks is besides the point. We want to see action, and that action needs to be forthcoming, or we will proceed to exhaust every last resort in the constitutional dispensation we have, and every last resort that the courts offer us.
Yeah. That there is Mr. Piet Roux, the CEO of Sakeliga. They've given the president until this Friday to intervene in the matter and the challenges faced by Ditsobotla municipality that, go back many years. Of course, and we've been covering those for you extensively over the years. We'll be watching that process very closely.